Greetings, friends, from Ames Chapel, where we gather for this observance of Good Friday. With our Christian friends, we recall the service of Tenebrae, a service of shadows or darkness, as we step into the narrative of Jesus' betrayal, arrest, crucifixion, death, and the steadfast love of God. We gather for this solemn observance as the light that came into the world begins to fade and darkness deepens. For the church, they often marked this moment of Holy Week, marked it by recounting the 7 final sayings of Jesus Christ as he hung from the cross, offering us these final 7 utterances and inviting us through music, through prayer, and silent contemplation to journey together as we make our way to light. As Jesus hung from the cross, he opened his mouth and said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." As he looked upon the city of Jerusalem, at that point at the end of his ministry, asking God to forgive these people who did not know what they were doing. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. On either side of the crucified one were 2 thieves, according to the story. And one of them, recognizing the innocence of Jesus, turned to Jesus and asked, "When you come into your kingdom, remember me, Lord, remember me." And Jesus uttered his second saying to the thief, "This very day you shall be with me in paradise." And the story tells us that as he hung from the cross, that one of his last acts of care was to turn to his mother and to his beloved disciple and to say to them, "Mother, here is your son," entrusting her into his care. "And son, here is your mother." And we are told that from that moment on, she and he entered into care for one another. At about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the light fades and darkness grows. And in the agony of his betrayal, of being abandoned and forsaken, Jesus utters aloud, "Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani." My God, why have you forsaken me?" And it lingers in the air as we look at all the ways that the dream has been broken. His friends dispersed, scattered, having lost faith. my God, why have you forsaken me?" And we're told that this one who throughout his life and ministry saw himself as living water, saw himself as ministering to those who thirsted for the abundance of life. The story says that at this hour he uttered, "I am thirsty." And after he had been given a drink, sour vinegar, he cried out, "It is finished." The Gospel of Mark tells us that when Jesus uttered, "It is finished," that the veil in the temple, the curtain in the temple, was ripped apart top to bottom, torn apart in two. This curtain, measuring some 60 feet in height, that separated the Holy of Holies from everywhere else in the temple. The Holy of Holies, which was the symbolic place where the presence of God came to dwell. This veil, this curtain that separated this inner sanctum from everywhere else about the temple was torn from top to bottom, we are told. And the centurion at the foot of the cross, who witnessed this, says the story, utters, "This truly was the Son of God." The temple curtain did not get pushed aside. It did not open. It actually, literally, says it was torn apart. It was ripped apart. It was schemazoi, where we get the word schism. That Greek word, schemazoi, which means to be rendered, ripped, torn apart, so that it may not be brought together again. It was torn from top to bottom. In the Gospel of Mark, there is only one other time where that word schemazoi is used. It's all the way at the beginning of the story, when Jesus rises from the waters of the Jordan in which he has been baptized. The waters that now confer his new identity, that call him to his new mission and purpose for his ministry. It is at that moment that Jesus looks up into the heavens, and the heavens are torn apart, ripped apart. Heaven and earth, that boundary ripped apart, and descending from above to below is the Spirit in the form of a dove. And not the voice of a centurion, but the voice of the Holy One saying, "You are my beloved, and in you I am well pleased." Schizmazoi, torn asunder, ripped apart, That word that bookends the entire Gospel of Mark at the beginning and at the end. This ripped apartness that shows a God who is present in that tearing apart, who breaks through the social arrangements and enters into our world of brokenness. At the beginning and at the end of the life and ministry of Jesus, the temple curtain is torn apart. You and I this year, we have known many tearing aparts. You and I have named many places in our world today that is tearing apart. Tearing apart at the social fabric that was woven to begin with to keep separate those who are oppressed from those who are privileged. Our social fabric that was woven to keep separate white dominant culture from those others and aliens and strangers. You and I, living through this moment in history, when that social fabric is being torn asunder. And in every places this tearing is happening, Mark asks us to watch closely. For in the tearing is the presence of the Holy One. The Holy One who is tearing through and entering into the brokenness of our world with power, with justice, with love strong enough to set things right. And so Jesus utters his seventh and final saying from the cross. Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. And having breathed his last, he surrendered his spirit. And in all the torn places of the world, God was moving. And so we stay awake, my friends, as we keep vigil, to watch for the movement of God's Spirit, reweaving the fabric of creation itself. May it be so, and amen.